Blessings, good evening to you all. We have a few questions have come in today, so try and give some explanation or advice. The first one being, I don't know if you hear that, but that was a deer just commenting. We just chanted the Dhamma Sutta, and that was chanted in the deer park in Varanasi, Mrigadaya one. So perhaps the deer is just mentioning that in his own way. The question is, when a monk breaks the precepts, he is reborn into the animal or the hell realm. Is this the same for lay people who break the 5 precepts? Well, of course, when you make akusala karma, unwholesome karma, the Buddhist teaching is that you have to experience the fruits of that unwholesome akusala karma, which is what we call akusala vibhaka karma. But there's always going to be different factors determining the strength of the karma that you make and then the kind of results that one receives. Whether there's a strong intention, whether it's perhaps done, built up over time, one has built up an intention to break a precept and then does it in a very strong, committed way, or sometimes it's done in a very casual, brief way. But perhaps the important thing here is if you're a monk, a Sangha member, you take on precepts, more precepts than just the 5 precepts, even though you can still break the 5 precepts as a monk, but you have many other precepts. You have your code of discipline, the Vinaya, and you're receiving alms food every day. You live by the generosity and kindness and sacrifice of other people. That's your livelihood. You're receiving alms. So with that comes a certain responsibility. You've taken on the Vinaya, you're living as an alms mendicant, you wear these robes, you're representing the Buddha and his teachings. So then, with that responsibility and with that karma, or good karma of taking on the Vinaya, and voluntarily you take it on and agree to live according to the discipline of a Buddhist monk and receive alms support from the lay community as you do that. It means if you then go against your precepts, the karmic consequences tend to be more, stronger, more intense, or more far-reaching, you could say, because you're not just doing something which comes back on yourself, but you may also be harming other people in a more broader sense. You do something wrong as a monk, can damage other people's faith. It's diminishing the amount of merit and good karma they make supporting you, and they may damage their faith in Buddhism as a whole. They may turn them off, as we know. Sometimes Sangha members do things that are uninspiring and then people lose faith. So as a monk or a nun, keeping precepts, you have the opportunity to do great good, and maybe more good ultimately than a layperson. but at the same time you also have the opportunity to make very bad karma, maybe more bad karma or worse bad karma than a layperson. So the consequences of one's actions seem to be kind of magnified, say, as a monk or a nun. So, for example, you say a monk gets drunk. Everybody would go, "Oh, what's this monk doing? Drinking alcohol." You're not only bringing yourself into an intoxicated state and damaging your practice, you may bring the whole religion into a state of disrepute, and people look down on monks and criticize, and maybe good monks then get criticized just because they're associated with you if you've done something wrong, such as getting drunk. Whereas a layperson gets drunk, maybe nobody thinks anything of it these days. It's quite normal, and nobody expects a lot. Maybe you could still receive some criticism, but you probably wouldn't receive much criticism as much as a monk. So it's a bit like that. It seems to magnify both the good and the bad you can do in terms of karma when you're an ordained person. As far as what happens after you die, well, a monk would have to do quite a lot of bad to be reborn as an animal or in a hell realm, but there's certainly stories of that happening in the time of the Buddha and even in this day and age. When monks break their precepts, particularly if they break the four major rules, the things never to be done as a Buddhist monk. So if a monk commits an act of sexual intercourse, breaks their rule of celibacy, or a monk steals something of value, or if a monk kills another person, or a monk knowingly makes a false claim to a superior human state, such as claiming enlightenment or claiming to have jhana, for example. These are offences, the worst, the gravest kind of offences against the monk's discipline, and then require that monk to be expelled, to end their life as a monk, and they can never be or shouldn't be reordained in this lifetime. And usually they say it's almost certainly guaranteed a rebirth in the hell realm, breaking one of those rules. Even if the monk may have also done many good things, and that's quite possible. Somebody has a mixture of karma, isn't it? They've done some good, but they've done something very seriously wrong as well. So the heavy karma of breaking one of those four rules, when they die, then generally that drags the mind into a great state of remorse, regret, darkness, guilt, and drags them into usually they say, into a birth in the hell realm. And then maybe the good karma they've made that will surface at a later date, maybe a long time away. So the most obvious example of this is Devadatta, the Buddha's cousin, who he completely lost the plot, you might say, because of lifetimes and lifetimes of rivaling the Buddha, hating the Buddha. It's a long story, literally, in terms of time, it's eons of time, but it's a long story of hatred towards the Buddha, life after life. And in his final life, as Devadatta, tried to kill the Buddha, tried to split the Sangha, tried to turn everyone against the Buddha, and so on. Did every kind of bad thing you can think of, basically. Very heavy karma, negative karma. So when he died, the Buddha said, well, he's reborn in the lowest depths of hell realms, the Avici, great Avici hell, and for a long time where there'll be a lot of unfortunate, painful consequences to endure. But Devadatta wasn't without good qualities, in the sense he had samadhi and psychic powers, and he could teach Dhamma, even though he had a lot of wrong view at the time. He also made some good karma. And so the Buddha said, well, eventually he comes out of the hell realm, he'll attain what we call, he'll become a Pacceka Buddha. Because of the strength of his karma, he's not going to have many people following him. He's not going to be able to become a Buddha and teach Buddhism because of the resultant karma of having done so much to damage the Buddha. But he can still, because of his abilities, he still has the capacity for progress and can attain to the state of being a Pacceka Buddha, which is what we call the silent Buddha, or a Buddha, somebody who attains Buddhahood but doesn't teach and doesn't establish the religion. So that's a sort of one example. Whereas if a layperson had tried to kill the Buddha or done the sort of things that Devadatta did, well, perhaps they may not have received quite such serious bad karma. We don't know, it's a hypothetical situation, but sometimes lay people do terrible things, but the consequences aren't quite so extreme because they are not alms mendicants. I sometimes talk about the dog at Wat Map Chan who used to have beautiful eyes, and it was commented on that this dog had previously been, in a previous life, had been a novice monk and had attained jhana, so had very good samadhi, obviously had merit in certain areas, but had broken his precepts as a novice monk with women, and so was reborn as a dog, but loved to hang around the monks and was a very peaceful dog and a very kind of, it would seem, spiritually evolved dog, although it had a very terrible pussy wound on its head that it never recovered from, and was still a dog. Obviously, that's something you just have to accept or not accept. You can't prove it, but if you trust in the teachers and Luang Por Anan, his ability to know things like that, past lives and karma, then you could accept, be careful. If you're a monk or a novice monk, keep your precepts, because you don't want to end up being reborn as a dog. And there are many, many other stories of monks being reborn either in a hell realm or as animals because of their breaking the precepts. Generally they say taking drugs and drinking regularly, you're damaging the qualities of being a human. Your humanity is being eroded away. So if just as you're eroding away your brain cells by constantly getting drunk or intoxicated, at the same time you're eroding away some of the qualities of being a human being. So one of the most likely results is that you're reborn in an animal realm. One of the defining qualities of animals is dullness. They have some intelligence, but they're very limited in what they can learn. You meet a few exceptional animals, of course, but the majority of animals are very dull, can't understand the Dhamma, can't progress spiritually, very difficult. And when somebody goes against their own humanity, acts in unhuman ways, they get drunk all the time, they kill, they steal, and so on, then it's quite possible they may be reborn as a human, according to Buddhist teaching, Buddhist cosmology. There was a monkey that lived with Luang Por Tet up at Tam Kam before Luang Por Tet died. Luang Por Tet, a disciple of Ajahn Mun. And the head monkey, he said, was a relative of his who had been a drinker and was reborn as a monkey but he was a monkey that lived close to the monks, because there's some good karma for the monkey. Had faith as a human, he'd had faith and was related to a very good monk. But when he died, because he was a drunkard, he was reborn as a monkey, but he kept close to the monks. So, as ever, everyone has a mixture of good and bad karma, which comes up in different ways. The simple reflection on this one, I guess, is just don't break the precepts whether you're a monk or a layperson because of the consequences. And that leads on to the next question. Why do we have to believe in karma? Well, you don't. You could ignore karma and the teachings on karma, that's your choice, but be wary of that, because it would be, say, not to take the teaching on karma of cause and effect. You know, karma literally is intentional action, and to not take notice of that would be considered heedless, pamada, or holding to wrong view that, you know, actions don't have consequences. You can do anything and it doesn't matter. And you meet people, many people who believe that or act in that way, as though that what they do doesn't matter. But of course, it catches up with you, and often in this very lifetime. You don't have to wait for another lifetime to prove these things. So, people would come to see the Buddha and say they didn't believe in karma, and he'd say, well, even if you don't believe in, say, rebirth and the future results of the karma you make this life, just look in one life, in this life, at the results of your actions. If you aspire to live with a sense of well-being and happiness, you have to ask yourself, what will be the causes for that? And this leads on to karma. I mean, what kind of actions are you performing day by day? What behavior do you engage in through body, physical action, speech, verbal action, and then mind? What do you think of? And you have to look and see what is conducive to your happiness and peace. And that's something for each individual to observe, learn, find out about. So you don't necessarily have to go as far as next life. Just go and look at this life, at cause and effect, day by day. And we talk about it all the time as monks. The more you reflect on it, for me, and I think for many other people, it becomes more obvious over time that cause and effect is true. Intentional action brings its results. It's almost like our skepticism is sort of our own worst enemy. So people are always looking for reasons not to believe in karma, or to point out anomalies or where it doesn't seem to be applying. But of course, karma can be quite a complex thing, and results come at different intervals. And, the timing of it is not always clear. Some karma, and then the Buddha explained all this. You read the suttas, read the texts. The Buddha explained some karma manifests quickly in this lifetime. Some karma manifests very slowly, so in future lifetimes. And that's one reason why people don't believe in karma, is they say, well, I can't see anything happening. This guy has done a lot of bad things and he seems to be fine. In Buddhist countries, usually they apply this to politicians, but it's not always. They say, I've done so many bad things, but they seem to get away with it all. Well, sometimes things catch up with people in their next life or in a future life. Sometimes it's 7 lifetimes onwards, sometimes for hundreds of lifetimes. But some kinds of karma does ripen quickly, and that's where the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path can help you to understand it more and more. Because as you develop mindfulness and you reflect back on your speech, your actions, your thinking, you notice cause and effect at work. And you can prove it on so many levels. You know, if you act in an unskillful, unwholesome way, ask yourself, what consequences come from this? And this is the teaching the Buddha gave to his own son, first off, after coming back from enlightenment. He taught him about the importance of sticking to the truth, not lying. Because he said if you lie, you can cover up any misdeed, any unskillful behavior. And then he taught him about karma and how to reflect on one's actions, say before, during, after, to see whether they're wholesome, skillful or unskillful and harmful. And that's the tool he was giving his son for living in the world skillfully. And that would be a good tool any parent could give their child, how to reflect on cause and effect, action and result, wholesome intention, wholesome action will be supportive of good results, happiness, be productive, profitable, we say. Whereas unwholesome intentions lead on to harm, suffering. You get kids to see that. When we receive the fruits of our old bad karma, and people come and attack us verbally or physically or cause us trouble, we don't like it. If we do that to others, they won't like it. And that's maybe the beginning. As a kid, you start reflecting on your actions. What you do maybe brings you trouble with not only that person that you're harming, but with teachers or parents and people around you as well. You reflect like that. Of course, the idea is you practice to the point where you're just seeing karma and understand karma rather than just believing in it. You're seeing cause and effect. And then the Arahant goes beyond karma altogether because they free their mind from the effects of the mental defilements, craving, attachment to a sense of self. They see through that with their practice of mindfulness, wisdom, cultivating the path to the point where there's no more sense of self. So the Arahant doesn't make any more karma, so they don't experience rebirth. So that is the goal of Buddhism, is actually to go beyond karma. But in the beginning it's something you take on faith or belief, and then you put it to the test through your practice until hopefully you just know karma at work. You see it, you know it at work without having to believe in it. You actually recognize the cause and effect taking place. And then you become very careful. You're about to do something, you stop because you know there may be, say, it's something with a negative intention. You're about to send that angry text, that angry email, or say those angry words, and you stop yourself because you know you'll regret it. That's karma, isn't it? You'll regret, the regret is karma, and then what that person will do next when they read the angry text, that's karma. Or you're flirting with someone else's partner. You stop yourself because you know this is going to lead to pain for so many people. You stop. You know, there's endless examples we could bring up, but as you reflect on karma, you become more careful about your actions and more sharper, more wise to your own intentions. And this is why the Buddha taught you, abandon unwholesome intention, cultivate the wholesome, and then purify your mind. Next question. As soon as I practice sitting meditation, I am overwhelmed by my thoughts. What can I do? In brief, just keep practicing. This question seems to come up quite often, and I think most meditators experience this. But what changes is, partly it's just improving your awareness and your understanding of what you're doing and what's happening in your mind, in your mental area, your mental space. Improving your attitude, improving your awareness, improving your understanding. So then your relationship between the mind and thought is changing. Not necessarily getting rid of all thought, but understanding thought as impermanent, as not self. So it takes the kind of sting out of it. And of course, if you keep practicing, well, sometimes you might experience the stillness of the mind where all thought stops and there's just pure knowing, pure awareness, what we call samadhi, one-pointedness. There's many depths of samadhi or levels of samadhi, but one-pointedness is one-pointedness on an object, so the more overwhelming thoughts, that sense of being overwhelmed by your thoughts completely disappears. And it's like you have your mind where you want it with an object, say the breath, and you have the accompanying pleasure and happiness of letting go of distraction and keeping the mind in one place. And that gives you a very powerful insight into the impermanent nature of thought, the lack of self in thought. Because if thoughts all disappeared temporarily, then, and you've seen that clearly, mindfully, with awareness, then thought is not so scary after that. It's like you've seen thought dissolve, disappear. Then even though you withdraw from that state and you start to experience thought again, you know, this is temporary, this can come and go, I can go beyond this, maybe with difficulty, but you can do it because you have done it. So thought doesn't overwhelm you so much. But you still have thought and you still think and you'll still have all kinds of different thoughts, some good, some bad. But your relationship to thought starts to change. You identify less strongly with each thought. And the idea is you more and more use thought as a tool for progressing in the practice of Dhamma. Just as you use your body to practice Dhamma, the more you practice the Dhamma and understand how to practice Sila, Samadhi, Panya, your body becomes a vehicle for doing good and practicing Dhamma rather than just something you identify with, attach to, like, don't like. Same with feelings, same with perceptions, same with thought formations. You start to use what you have as a human being, physical and mental, to your advantage. Becomes a source of insight and understanding, becomes a source for doing good to help others, but also, more importantly, insight into the nature of these five khandhas, or this body and mind, seeing them as impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self. So your whole relationship changes, the mind is developing more equanimity and more insight out of this equanimity, and that includes thought. So you see and know thought as just thought. We say thought is merely thought. And you can do that in the course of one moment, one short period of meditation. Just start watching thought, and of course there will be times you just get all lost in your thoughts, but there may be moments where you can see thought is just another verbalization, another image, another little episode or story in your mind that arises, passes away, and then it's gone. And noticing the breaks between the different chapters of your thinking. You think about one issue, what you did yesterday, and then that passes, and then you start thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow, and that passes. But there's breaks, there's gaps, there's moments between the thoughts, there's space in the mind. The content of each train of thought or each emotion changes. The more you reflect on this and observe this, you're seeing impermanence, and that's giving you insight into lack of self as well. So just keep practicing, and you become a little bit wiser and more detached from thoughts, and then they don't seem to bother you so much. Like Ajahn Chah used to say, watching thoughts, when you establish mindfulness, it's just like watching waves come into the shore. And sometimes it's a stormy, windy sea and the waves are very big and scary. And then other times the sea is very calm. Other times it's more just kind of a normal level of just the waves roll in, but they break on the shore, they go back. And whether it's a big wave or a small wave, that's what waves do. They break on the shore and they go back into the sea. And that's like thought arising, it's there for a moment and then it dissolves away again. Even the big, overwhelming emotional ones do that. So over time, practicing, you'll get familiar with that and you'll feel maybe more at ease watching thoughts and reflecting on them rather than just getting lost in them. The last question tonight. Ajahn, my parents are dying. What can I do for them? Well, I don't mean to be flippant, but we're all dying, aren't we? Every moment we're getting older, every moment we're going towards our grave. Some will die quicker than others. But parents, we obviously have a very special relationship with our parents because they gave birth to us, brought us up. People often focus on the differences with their parents, the difference of opinion and view on things, a different lifestyle, different habit, a different generation. But we also have a lot in common with our parents. They're human beings, we want to be happy and don't want to be in pain, just as they are. They're the same. And they obviously did a lot for us, particularly in the first part of our life. And maybe even now when your parents may be old, and they're still doing things for you. They still give you warmth, love, good advice, support, maybe material support. So it's a special relationship. They never don't become your parents. Once a parent is established, parent and a child is born, that relationship continues right through to the end of your life, their life. Your friends, acquaintances, work colleagues, everyone else is not so certain. Parents are certain. So it's an important relationship. Whether you like them or not, their character, their personality, just what they've done, that role is very special. And so the Buddha said the best way to repay them or help them is to help them to understand the Buddhist teachings, the way out of suffering, the Four Noble Truths. That would be the best. If they don't have any faith in Buddhism, we'll try to establish them in faith in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. If they already have faith, then try to support them in their practice and deepen their faith and deepen their understanding. So whatever you can do to support them on that level, getting them to hear the Dhamma, practice the Dhamma in whatever way you can. But it depends on how old or how ill they are. If they're dying, maybe that's, they're right at the end of their life then. Maybe you have to be quite modest in your expectations, but you can still do things. Like I've known people who have played Dhamma talks to their parents who are in and out of consciousness in their beds in the last few days or few weeks of their life. They've played Dhamma to them, they've read Dhamma to them, they've chanted for them, they've played tapes of chanting, and if the parents have some faith, then that can be uplifting, even if it's only for brief moments. If they don't have any faith in Buddhism, or they don't have any experience with Buddhism, you might have to just be more general, and it's just the practice of compassion, kindness for them, in whatever way you can show them, caring for them, supporting them, showing your love, and then talking in a very supportive way. We often have difficulty talking to our parents. We have a lifetime of karma there. And work on it. Work on how to talk to them with kindness, not judging them, not arguing with them, letting go of your desire to put your own opinions on them, accepting them for who they are, talking about the good that they've done in their life, showing your appreciation for their life, talking about the good things they've done in the past. There's many, many things we can do. And even if they're on their deathbed and they're very weak, they can't talk, maybe you can just sit and meditate for them. There's always something you can do. If you're in the good situation, you can invite monks to come and bless them, talk to them, and they're still able to appreciate that. Well, that's a good thing to do. If you can't bring monks, then you can maybe get them to listen to the Dhamma, or you read Dhamma books to them. And that personal connection you're reading gives it a certain power, and maybe it's an expression of love, caring for them. Maybe they appreciate that. So you do what you can to express your kindness, your gratitude. You do what you can to help them to be calm and accept their situation. So you encourage them to let go of the negativity, the worries, the fears, the anger that may be coming up in their mind. Give them encouragement to let that go, not to worry about their physical body, the pain, the discomfort, the aging, just to accept that's just natural. Whatever way you can get them to see and understand the Dhamma, and often that's from very natural things. If you can get them to practice some breathing meditation, and even if they're not Buddhist, you just encourage them to follow the breath sometimes as a way to calm down, let go of worries, states of mind that are bothering them. Do some breathing meditation with them, give them that instruction even at the very end if they're still conscious. Encourage them just to relax with the breathing and let go of everything else. One other gift you can give to your parents is the gift of being calm yourself, even though you might be emotional on the inside, worried about them, sad, but giving them this sense of calm so they are not worried about you. You're through your own practice, if you're already practicing Buddhism, use that to keep yourself calm at that moment, in a calm, peaceful atmosphere around your parents, so they can die in peace. Because so many people cry, get upset, become tense, stressed because their parents are dying, and often the children are arguing this and that, or discussing things. Often we make it worse for them. So be aware that you can offer the gift of peace, calm to your parents, and in those final days or moments. Well, I think there is plenty we can do, but try and use the Dhamma, whatever Dhamma you've practiced through your life, at that very important time, to try and keep your own mind calm, peaceful, reflective on the Dhamma, and then pass that on to them, or at least support them as they're passing away. So that's the end of tonight's questions, and we'll leave it there, and wish you well with your practice.